There's an old Jewish saying that asks, when does a hunchback rejoice? And the answer is, when he sees someone with a larger hump. You know, that's kind of how I feel about life. There's another Yiddish saying, der Yid schlugt und schreit Gewalt, which translates roughly as a Jew beats you up and then shouts help. In any case, back in the old days, scientists used to think that the world was flat and that the Earth was the center of the universe. Doctors used to think that if you drilled holes in people's heads, they'd get better. And Aristotle thought that women had fewer teeth than men. Nowadays, those seem like some pretty bad assumptions. And what about religion? The Greeks used to worship Poseidon and Zeus and tried to predict the future by reading the entrails of birds. You had your Norse gods and Egyptian gods, ancient Hawaiian spirits like Kanoa and Hinapukua'i. The Aztecs used to worship a giant snake called Quetzalcoatl and engaged in human sacrifice. These all must have seemed like good ideas at the time, but now we just think they're a crock. But what if everything we think today turns out to be as farcical and absurd in the future as all those ancient beliefs seem to us now? I mean, think about it. If everything they believed before turned out to be wrong, and the present is constantly slipping away into the past, what's that expression? Today is the yesterday of tomorrow? Something like that. Well, then chances are our understanding of reality is completely misguided. Maybe the Earth is really shaped like a pig's heart or a baboon, and maybe it really is flat after all. Maybe worshiping Jesus is as ridiculous as anything the cavemen used to do, or those wackos with the Kool-Aid in Guyana back in the 70s. And remember those folks who were waiting for the spaceship to show up and take them all away? I guess when you think about it, it's impossible to know anything with any certainty at all. We might all be better off like those Buddhist folks you read about, who've attained the intuitive tolerance of the ultimate incomprehensibility of all things. Anyway, the whole thing's a bit of a mess, and it reminds me of that joke about the agnostic dyslexic insomniac. You know, the one who stays up all night wondering if there really is a dog. Or that old one, what's long and hard and full of semen? A submarine. Is there anyone here from New Jersey? Hog. Zog. Sog. Wog. Now look, I may not be the best-looking guy in the world. I'll admit that. And I've done some things I'm not too proud of either. All I'm saying, and it's probably the one thing everyone can agree on, is that everything in the world is relative. It's like it says in the surah entitled Al-Kafirun in the Quran. I do not worship what you worship, nor do you worship what I worship. Nor will I ever worship what you worship, nor will you ever worship what I worship. To you is your religion, and to me is my religion. In other words, different strokes for different folks. But to be honest with you, I'd rather avoid the whole topic of religion altogether, because it just tends to get people kind of riled up. One thing's for sure, though, to quote the old proverb, if praying did any good, they'd be hiring men to pray. And I'm not even going to mention child pornography. I'll tell you, though, when I was a kid, I used to worry a lot about growing up. When I turned 2, I was really anxious because I doubled my age in a year. I thought, well, if this keeps up, by the time I'm 6, I'll be 90. I guess that was the first moment I realized that time is basically non-linear. But you know, it's curious. Like time, language is a fairly flexible thing, and you can do a lot with it. Thanks to the elasticity of words, large leaps in meaning can be made just by moving letters around a little bit, kind of like changing musical harmonies by altering the different notes in a chord. For example, consider the difference between a tow-headed child, spelt T-O-W, and a two-headed child, spelt T-W-O. Some words can mean more than one thing at the same time, like kernel, primate, unicorn, Blair, and liar. Other words sound very much alike, but may be related only marginally. Gulagang and falungang, mimosa and mimesis, papadam and papadoc, and even paradise and paradox. You've got Popeye and papaya, Popayan and papillon, papayoma, papayacta. And what about Papa Legba? Ouvrez barrière pour nous. And as if that weren't enough, some words even exist in more than one language at the same time, what Brachtoon like to call translinguistic homonyms. Chauffeur, louse, moose, samosa, and jism. Now, I don't want to become tiresome, but if the same words mean totally different things from one language to the next, or don't even have a fixed meaning in one language at all, well, you have to wonder, maybe people simply have no basis at all for a common understanding of the world. And that's assuming there's some kind of objective reality that transcends language or sense perception in the first place. But I guess what I'm trying to say is as long as people leave me alone, let them do whatever they want. I mean, it's not like we're living in Russia, so who am I to stop them? To be fair, though, they aren't really communists in Russia anymore, but, you know, a lot of people think they were actually better off under the old Soviet system. The country's being run into the ground by a corrupt criminal elite, just like in the good old days of feudalism. So much for all that Marxist stuff, I guess. But maybe that's why they call it a revolution, because once it's all over, you're right back where you started. You've just gone in a big circle. It's like that old haiku by Basho. Summer grasses, all that remains of great soldiers' imperial dreams.